Hey, this is Dom. I wanted to just give a real quick tutorial in Motion for those of us who couldn't make it to the meeting. Big ups to Andy Miller and Brad Bogut for putting this together. It was great of them to organize this meeting because I did learn a few tips about how powerful the software really is. If you haven't gotten it from IT yet, head on down there. They'll probably upgrade you. If you haven't done the laptop oil change, you'll have the newer version, and some things have been moved around, I hear. But I'm going to go through some really basic stuff to just get you started and show you some of the things that the program is capable of doing right off the bat. Once you open the program, this is the main splash page. I'm just going to first off import a piece of media. So you have two tabs here, media and layers. Media just is going to be a bin for all of your video and picture clips. There's a one that says audio for all your audio clips. And layers is going to get your clips directly into the timeline. It's just going to show a visual hierarchy of the clips as they're arranged in the timeline as well. The timeline is broken up into the main project, and then you can do subgroups and import many clips as you like into those subgroups, which is kind of cool if you want to do like global changes to several clips after you get them in. But first, let's get a clip into the project. You can either drag directly from your Finder viewer into the layers bin, or you can right click and go import. And once you do that, navigate through the Finder to the clip or clips that you're wanting. The second you import it, it drops it directly into a group and directly to the timeline. I had an extra group there. I'm just going to get rid of it. And so your clip shows up and the image comes into the preview monitor there. So let's talk about what some of these things are on the screen. Left side, you'll see two tabs, Library and Inspector. The library breaks down your filters and generators and graphics that you'll be throwing onto the clips in the timeline. You've got all, and then you've got subgenres under your filters, such as blur. It's got all your different blurs broken down here with a nice kind of illustration of what they'll do. And you simply would just drag those filters to the clip. But we're going to skip that mostly today. We're going to talk about keyframing and the Inspector tab. The Inspector tab breaks it down by properties, behaviors, filters from the library, and so on and so forth. So the properties are going to be shown after you click your clip. You'll have transform properties just like you would in Final Cut. And then you have keyform functions for each individual one. You can do all scale, all rotation, and all position, vice versa. Right off the bat, your image is a little small, so if I wanted to just scale it to fit it to the frame, I'm going to go click and drag here and just bring it up from its center. You notice it's cropped some on the sides. I'm just now going to select the X scale and stretch it out a little bit like so, just to fill the frame. Okay. If you wanted to animate a scale from this point, drop a keyframe right in the front, scrub forward, scale, and watch the results. So the keyframing is very simple in a 2D perspective like Final Cut, which I like, but Final Cut does this already. You may not want to go all the way into a separate program to do that. But what I do like about this software is it does enable you to do 3D. So up top here, under Add an Object, you can add a camera or a light. We're going to start with a camera. This is going to tell you to keep the groups as 3D or 2D or switch them to 3D. We're going to switch them all to 3D, that's what we want. Now this is where it gets really cool. You notice that there's a new camera tab here with a few different selectors for the camera. You also have properties for the camera, just like we did with the clips. There's a camera tab or a camera clip now on the timeline. And you have these functions here. One says active camera, and these little tabs, which I'll tell you what they do in just a moment. I'm going to fit this to frame. If you'd like to use a lot of clips and you're getting a lot of keyframing going, you can change the rendering resolution. So as you're editing, you can drop this down to half or quarter resolution to save processing power. Obviously, when you export, it's going to export full frame, but while you're editing, this will save some juice and some rendering time for you if you bump those down, if you have a lot of edits. Also, under View, you've got all your rulers, your grids, your safety zones, your overlays, the handles, lines, and all kinds of other good things to guide you while you're scaling your images. Okay, so let's go back to the fact that I just dropped a camera onto this group. These functions are cool because they allow you to change the X and Y scale perspective of the camera, the rotationary perspective of the camera, and the depth or the Z field of the camera. Okay? So if you click and drag these, you'll notice right away that the image will start to scale on a Z plane here. It says depth. You'll notice if you start to click and drag on the rotation, it starts to rotate the image out on a rotationary scale here. And the grid just shows the plane, the flat plane there, which is really kind of cool visually at first. And then you've got X and Y. So if you click and drag here, you can go above and you can go below. And all these functions are keyframe. You can enable keyframes on these, which is cool. So you can fly the camera around and use a 3D perspective on your images. You'll notice that these numbers change over here as I change these tabs. The active camera tab here describes obviously what it is right here, active camera. You can change, as you change the active camera, the word active just means that as you change the camera, you're doing real-time changes to the perspective. This is a front view perspective. This is they call that one perspective. This one's the front view. This is a back view. There's a top view. This yellow triangle basically just outlines where the direction of your camera. This little camera is looking outward, and that is the frame. Top view. And you can do your X and Y's, your rotations, and your Z plane scale. The white line is that picture from the front view. So I'm going back to active camera because when I start keyframing, I want to be under active camera in order to make the keyframes happen on the timeline. Essentially, activate your keyframes here. Select your clip, camera, activate keys on all of your parameters, anchoring them in, and then scrub forward. And then you can use these tabs up here to actually animate the second keyframe. As I scale out, you'll notice the keyframe is plotted. I'm going to scale out, I'm going to rotate up, and I'm going to go from left to right. So now I should have an animated picture from start to finish. Pretty cool. This little gray box up here gives you a multi-cam view. So right now we're on a single viewer. We can split the box and change this perspective to top, for instance. Now because I've rotated my camera in a weird way, it sort of looks weird from the top. But you can kind of, reconfigure it, and let's just go to reset view. And that's technically the top view. And as you scrub through, we're going to have to fit this so we can see the whole image here. And as you scrub through, you'll see that the camera actually perspective changes from the top view or from the left view. Fit to frame. So the camera's right dead on with the picture, and then it scales upward, and you can see the perspective of the camera. So there's a lot of possibilities with this software. Essentially, this is mostly what I took away from the meeting this afternoon. There were a few things I wanted to also point out. If you want to change the duration of your timeline, you go to Project, and under Properties for the project itself, you would change the timeline duration here and change some other things about that. If you want to snap, there's a snapping icon here. To show these keyframes in the first place on the timeline, there's a little toggle switch right there that shows keyframes, and the little dots will come on. If you want to make your keyframes longer or shorter, just click and drag them under the camera perspective. If you actually wanted to see what's called the keyframe editor, it's kind of neat because essentially it will show you, as you get more keyframes, it'll show you a linear plot of the keyframes that we just adjusted. And you can actually do a drawing tool and get all advanced as you like with that. That's called the keyframe editor. It's right here. Or you can do the simple basic stuff that we just talked about. Go back to the front view, just a single view here. Switch it back to active camera. And then you can get crazy with it as much as you like. I can duplicate this clip a few times. If I want to arrange them in the hierarchy here, I'm going to take my original and plot it up to the top. I'm going to name these 2 and 3. And so for 2 and 3, I would like the Z position to be different. So, for instance, I'm going to stretch the Z position for number 2 and move that one back. And then for number 3, I'm going to move the third one even further back. So you see how the clips are now shown in the top view here, 2 and 3. My active camera, I'm going to rotate up, I'm going to scale out, and I'm going to X and Y and hover over it. Now you have essentially 3 images that you can kind of dance from, and scale them like so, and so on and so forth. Switch that to active camera, switch that to top view, fit to frame. Use my little hand tool here to pull that into view. And that's it, guys. That's how you start animating images and using 3D compositions. And that's about as much as I can fit into a 10-minute tutorial for you. If you have any questions, run them past Andy or Brad. They can walk you through this stuff just as much as they walked me through. And this was just from the meeting today. So the possibilities are infinite. And so get out there and get creative with these projects.